The Prime Minister added that he and Donald Trump had established a good relationship when they met in New York last month.
I think is a really dangerous precedent to have the ruling party of a ally somehow playing politics, getting involved in the actual campaigning with such a short notice. I mean, it's the last month of our campaign.
Donald Trump has accused the UK's Labour Party of interfering in the US presidential election. Trump is extremely angry about this and has made a formal complaint to the US Federal Election Commission. This has caused a scandal in both the UK and the US. The situation is about to escalate as the trial is set to begin soon. Let's break down what's happening and examine the situation more closely.
In recent weeks, they've recruited and sent party members to campaign for Kamala in critical battleground states, attempting to influence our election. A now-deleted social media post from a senior Labour official said that there were 10 spots available to travel to the US and that the party would sort housing for volunteers. But Labour officials say activists who have been campaigning for Kamala Harris are doing so in their personal capacity and are not organised or funded by the party. For some context, a foreign national can participate in campaign activities as long as they're not being paid for it.
The Labour Party seems to have decided to throw all its forces in support of Kamala Harris in the presidential election, sending an entire army to the United States, a group of 100 current and former party employees. The head of the Labour Party department, Sophia Patel, proudly announced that about 100 party members will head to North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. She even offered 10 free places for those who are willing to take the risk and go to North Carolina, promising to take care of housing, although this message soon disappeared as if it had never existed. However, not everyone shares this enthusiasm. Donald Trump's former aide, Sebastian Gorka, furiously criticized the plan, calling it outrageous and warning that such actions could undermine the fragile relations between London and Washington if Trump wins again. Elon Musk also did not stand aside, saying that the actions of the Labour Party are illegal. After the assassination attempt on Trump at a campaign event in Pennsylvania in July, he openly supported his candidacy, donating as much as $75 million to his campaign from July to September. According to the Federal Election Commission, foreign volunteers are not allowed to donate funds to candidates' campaigns or spend money on their behalf. Labour members eager to help Kamala Harris were informed that they would have to cover the cost of flights and car rental themselves, but American volunteers of the Democratic Party are ready to provide them with housing. In 2016, dozens of Labour Party activists also traveled to the United States, including North Carolina, to support then Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton, but she was defeated.
I think is a really dangerous precedent to have the ruling party of a ally somehow playing politics, getting involved in the actual campaigning with such a short notice. I mean, it's the last month of our campaign.
Sir Keir Starmer has played down the significance of the Trump campaign's allegations, pointing out that Labour had volunteers who'd gone to America pretty much every election, doing it in their spare time and staying with other volunteers. The Prime Minister added that he and Donald Trump had established a good relationship when they met in New York last month.
Starmer resolutely refuted the loud statements of Donald Trump's campaign headquarters about the interference of the Labour Party in the US elections. He confidently stated that the participation of volunteers in elections is nothing more than a normal practice for activists of all political trends around the world. Starmer stressed that all volunteers from the Labour Party act exclusively on a voluntary basis and at their own expense. Starmer expressed his willingness to work with the new American leader, regardless of how the election results turn out. He sincerely believes that he has a good relationship with Trump, despite the lawsuit filed by Trump against the Labour Party. The Labour Party also confirmed that it does not fund travel or accommodation for volunteers, strictly following US federal election rules.
Commission. This is not the first time that either Labour or Conservative Party staff have campaigned in the US election. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes reports.
Donald J. Trump.
US election interference by the Labour Party. The claim being made by Donald Trump's campaign that Britain's ruling party and Kamala Harris's campaign have broken the law. In a 6-page letter to America's election watchdog, the Federal Election Commission, a lawyer for the Trump campaign cites media reports about contact between Labour and the Harris campaign and requests an immediate investigation into blatant foreign interference with apparent illegal foreign national contributions made by the Labour Party.
The complaint sent to the US Federal Election Commission contains serious accusations. The use of illegal foreign aid by Kamala Harris's campaign is perceived as another failed attempt in an endless series of anti-American interventions that undermine the foundations of democracy. Labour has been described as far left, and it is claimed that Starmer's party inspired Harris with dangerously liberal ideas and rhetoric, which is alarming to many. There are many theories about interference in the American elections, and the most famous is the story of Russian interference in 2016. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller has filed charges against 13 Russian citizens for their involvement in the scandal. This included the use of fake accounts with stolen personal data of US citizens and specific actions with funds allocated to them. All Russian media, both internal and external, were involved in discrediting the Democrats. Do you believe in it?
What do you think the first meeting between a potential Donald Trump as President of the United States is going to look like with Keir Starmer as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, knowing how Trump likes to get his revenge on people that have slighted him? He's going to blame Keir Starmer for this whole 100 party members being seen to be shipped over to the United States to fight against his prospects of winning the presidency. How do we think that first meeting is going to go between Trump and Starmer? Well, I suspect it'll be very much Trump refusing to shake Keir Starmer's hand.
Well, it won't be a first meeting because, of course, Keir has already been across to the US, as indeed has also David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary.
But that was before the Labour Party decided to have a go at Donald Trump directly.
Russell, I think my advice to you is do not necessarily assume that what happens in private between two elected politicians is necessarily a reflection of what they say rhetorically to the wider public.
This tense confrontation between Starmer and Trump only fuels fears in the UK that Starmer could find himself completely isolated in Washington if Trump wins the election again in just 2 weeks. Nigel Farage, with his usual bluntness, said that the Labour Party made a catastrophic political mistake when Donald Trump accused them of interfering in the election. This confrontation not only undermined Starmer's position, but also cast doubt on the future of the Labour Party in international politics.
In the United States.
And probably to us politicos, I suppose, that kind of get off on this kind of stuff. But do we think that in terms of Labour's record already, I mean, you make a really good point, actually, that they seem to still be acting as though they're in opposition and they can, you know, be a little bit edgy and anarchic and throw a few rocks and so on. Of course, being in government, being in office, being in power is a very, very different thing, both in terms of the consequences, but also the message it sends. I mean, how many lessons have the Labour government got to learn, frankly, with regard to, you know, attacking pensioners, letting prisoners out of jail early just to reoffend immediately, being met outside the gates by cavalcades of Bentleys and Lamborghinis.
Recent months have been a nightmare for London's international prestige. In Australia, Charles III was met not just with protests, but with a real wave of anti-monarchical anger which reached extremes. Cartoons with the beheaded British monarch are shocking and insulting. The Congress of Leaders of the British Commonwealth, which began every 2 years, immediately turned into a complete failure. Even Canada, a seemingly loyal ally, refused to send its Prime Minister Trudeau or Foreign Minister to this important event. Starmer, realizing the gravity of the situation, was forced to abruptly shorten his tour and abandon a trip to Australia in order not to provoke a new wave of anti-British protests. He will spend only a tiny amount of time at the Commonwealth Congress. Because the agenda is full of unpleasant surprises, the Caribbean countries demand a whopping £200,000 billion from London in reparations. In the face of economic difficulties, Britain simply cannot afford such payments. The Labour Party has to humbly ask China for help while it slowly but surely captures British possessions. From the Solomon Islands to Antigua and Barbuda, they have already lost the Chagos Islands, which had been under British control for 200 years. Jamaica will soon hold a referendum on secession from the power of the Crown, and few people in the world are interested in focusing on Britain, mired in a systemic crisis. London can only brazenly interfere in the American elections on the side of Harris, but this could turn into a real disaster for them if Trump wins again. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you.